Good evening, boys and girls. Professor Murphy once again for some WHP 101. Now, I've gotten plenty of emails from new and upcoming narrators, all asking, can you watch my video and tell me if I'm any good? Unfortunately, most of them suffer from the same issues. So, instead of answering any more, I've decided to create this lesson on how you can become a better narrator. Now, I'm not going to focus on anything CreepyPasta based since that is what I personally narrate. These ideals apply to all narration, whether it be creepypasta, radio drama, podcasting, anything where you are reading from a script. So buckle up, kiddies, it's gonna get a little bumpy. I cannot stress this enough. 9 times out of 10 when somebody asks me to watch their video and tell me if they're any good, they all suffer from this first issue. Now, even as I'm talking to you now, I'm reading this from a script that I've written out and I'm reading. But the way I'm reading it is what gives you the illusion that I'm simply talking to you. That's the difference between reading a story out loud and narrating a story. I'll give you another example. The following passage is from a story that I wrote a while back and probably never going to see the light of day outside my website. I awoke in a dark tunnel, or is it a cave? The musty odor penetrates my nostrils and causes me to cover my face. My surroundings are blurred, but come into focus within a few moments. Where the hell am I? I remember seeing a bright purple flash, then nothing. How long was I out? How did I even get here? Now the wording is good, but there's no emotion in how I read it. Well, let's try this again. I awoke in a dark tunnel, or is it a cave? The musty odor penetrates my nostrils and causes me to cover my face. My surroundings are blurred, but come into focus within a few moments. Where the hell am I? I remember seeing a bright purple flash, then nothing. How long was I out? How did I even get here? You see the difference? There's a rhythm on how I was narrating. There were inflections and pauses. The words rose and fell, and I put myself into the narrator's place so that my voice would reflect the confusion and horror that he's feeling. Now, when you narrate, you want to pretend that you are in the story, not just outside looking in. No one's going to believe the story that way. You want to suck the listener in and make them believe that what you're saying is true. The more you narrate like you are telling a story, rather than reading it from a textbook, the better. Now, what helps me the most to narrate is to read the story before I narrate it. I have found that English is a fickle language, and there are many nuances that may trip you up when you are narrating. Give the story a good read-through before you even press record. You will be surprised on how much this helps in the long run. Say, for instance, the narrator of the story is recalling the account of when his family disappeared, but you don't actually read the line of text that this is all a flashback until the end. It would help to know that fact personally beforehand so you can incorporate that into your recording. Just because the audience doesn't know what's going to happen does not mean that you should. This is another point that needs excess stress. If you're just starting out, very rarely are you going to hit the nail on the head, unless you're homeless and just lucky enough to go viral. You need to work on your voice. You need to practice speaking out loud. Not just talking, you need to speak. Talking and speaking are as different as reading and narrating. When you talk, it's function only. When you speak, it's to use that function to its fullest extent. It's a learned talent, just like any other talent. You can get better at it if you practice. Some of us do vocal exercises, some perform tongue twisters, some gargle with salt water. Anything to loosen up your vocal cords before recording. Because when you record, you are going to be recording for a very long time. When I usually record, I make sure that I have a few things at hand for the session. First off, I always have something to drink. Most of the time it's a beer, but that's just me. Never drink and speak. It can get you into trouble if you abuse it. So preferable, a bottle of water. Your mouth will get dry, and you will want to have that at hand so that you can make this a smooth process as possible. I also always have what I'm narrating in a text document active on one of my screens. When I snag a story I'm going to read, I simply copy and paste it into a text document rather than print it out. That way I can increase the font size, make changes to the verbiage if necessary, and correct grammatical and/or spelling errors on the fly. The great thing about having multiple monitors is that I can have what I'm narrating fully open on one monitor and Audacity open on another screen recording. I always like to position the microphone just off to the side of my mouth so that it doesn't block my view of what I'm reading. Now these are just my preferences of how I have everything set up, and it may not work for you. It'll be up to you to figure out what setup works best with your space and preference. So you have a microphone that costs you several hundred, and an audio recording and editing suite that costs several thousand. So what? You could have the best equipment in the world, but if you don't have a clue of how to use them properly, you'd be better off with 2 tin cans and some string. It's all about quality, not quantity. In this instance, he who has the best toys does not always win the game. You need to realize this now before you waste your money. Honestly, if you have a simple microphone, a set of headphones, and Audacity, you can make a pretty decent production. Great thing about the software is that it's free, and that always helps. Here's some other tips that should do you justice, and most, if not all of them, are completely free. Find a quiet, well-insulated area to record. Now, my current space is limited, and I have to compete with my house's HVAC kicking on every so often in the background, but I make it work. I have the gain on my microphone cranked all the way down so the microphone's range is extremely narrow, so it doesn't pick up the whir of the HVAC fan as much. Also, the HVAC has a warm-up period of about 1 minute before it turns on full blast. I use that as a warning that the furnace will turn on shortly, and I'm able to finish my current sentence, stop the recording, mark my place so I can pick up right from where I left off, and when the HVAC goes back to sleep in about 5 minutes, I can just start right back from where I left off. I like this for a couple reasons. Number one, it gives me a chance to go to the bathroom. Number two, it gives me a chance to rest my eyes from glaring at a computer screen. Number three, it gives me a chance to grab another beer, soda, or whatever I'm drinking. And four, it gives me a chance to systematically reboot so that I can come back just as focused as when I restart. It's good to take breaks when you're recording, or your mind can quickly turn into mush. Headphones nowadays run from $5 to $200, depending on the brand and functions. I absolutely hate earbuds. They never stay in my ears and they won't work well for canceling out external noises. I actually prefer a set of headphones that cover the entire ear like a big old set of causes. I'm not trying to start a fashion trend with headphones, so I really don't care if I look like a goober when I record. They don't even need to be a certain brand, just as long as they completely cover my ears, I'm happy. For microphones, it's up to you, really. I used to work with the Sorensen boom microphone, but I had to hold it with my hand since it didn't come with a stand. I still use it for live videos since it does come with a mount for my camera, and that's what it's best used for. Next, I purchased a Turtle Beach headset, and it worked well for a very long while, until it started fizzing out every now and then. Then I got a Blue Yeti, which is by far my weapon of choice. It's a nice-sized condenser microphone that has a buttload of settings on the microphone itself. Plus, it looks like one of those old-timey microphones, which gets me all sorts of giddy. Honestly, the type of microphone doesn't really matter as long as it's reliable. You don't want to have to compete with a connection just because the thing is older than dirt and falling apart. Lastly, let's talk software. Actually, let's not. I've already put a tutorial out there on Audacity and its noise removal, so I'll keep this part brief. I'm going to fully support Audacity for the same reasons that I stressed in the last WHP 101 video. It's cross-platform compatible, meaning you can install it from Mac or Windows. It's very powerful and dynamic. There are loads of tutorials and forums out there on it, so if you don't know how to use it, you can certainly find out with a quick Google search. And best of all, it's free. The last thing I want to talk about is individuality. Now, you need to find your own voice. Yes, they say that imitation is the simplest form of flattery, but in this case, it's rude and kind of creepy. You don't have to sound like anyone other than yourself. There are dozens of other narrators out there, and it's a very, very tough market. If you try to sound like someone else, then most of the comments on your video are going to be how your so-and-so impression sucks and they would rather listen to them than you. Why listen to narrator A trying to sound like narrator B when people can just listen to narrator B? You need to find your own narration style, and that is what's going to help you in the long run. If you're known for reading things in a certain way, that is what people will remember you by, and they will come back just because they like your style. If you gave the exact same story to each of the major narrators in the CreepyPasta circuit, MCP, Junior, Creeps, TheCreepyDark, MissShadowLovely, myself, and asked us to record our own version, I am pretty certain that each version would be completely different from the others. Why? Because we have our own style. Technically, I actually have several styles, but that depends on the story I'm narrating, so I'm not taking that into account here. But the key is that you find your own way of doing things and not to copy or mimic anyone else's style. Well, kids, that's it. None of anything of what I've gone over should be any big secret. Most of this is just common sense stuff. So let's recap. Narrate, don't read. Know what you're narrating. Practice makes perfect. You don't need the best equipment. And find your own voice. Just as a reminder, make sure you visit CreepyPastaNetwork.com. After 6 months of life, we're well over the 6,500 members and still growing. We have plans for the future, so just make sure you keep on tuning in. You can tumble with me at wellheyproductions.tumblr.com. And as always, make sure you visit wellhey.com, where we're always bringing you colorful insanity to your drab, uneventful lives. Class dismissed.